The whisper started with a laptop. Not a rumor, not a blurry photograph, not a drunken confession whispered at a royal afterparty, but a machine. A cold, silent device seized by federal agents during one of the most explosive investigations in modern history. And according to sources circling the investigation like vultures around a carcass, that machine, a laptop belonging to Jeffrey Epstein, may contain something the British monarchy prayed would never surface. A series of emails referencing a rumor about Princess Eugenie and a child the public was never meant to know about. For years, the Epstein scandal has operated like a dark ocean beneath elite society. On the surface, everything looks calm: charity galas, royal weddings, carefully posed photographs. But underneath, currents pulling secrets through corridors of unimaginable power. And every time investigators crack open a vault or decrypt an old device, something new floats to the surface. This time, the device in question is said to be one of the final laptops recovered from Epstein's network of properties. Not the famous island servers, not the Manhattan Mansion computers already dissected by investigators. This one reportedly came from a storage archive linked to Epstein's old financial office, a digital graveyard filled with emails, contacts, and private correspondence. And buried somewhere in that archive, according to insiders who claim to have glimpsed fragments of the files, is an email chain referencing something investigators labeled simply as the York Matter. Now, that phrase alone might sound vague, but anyone who has followed the royal drama surrounding the York family knows exactly what it implies, because the York name carries decades of controversy. Prince Andrew's disastrous association with Epstein already cracked the royal image once before. His infamous interview, the lawsuit, the settlement, the humiliating removal from royal duties. The monarchy barely survived that storm. But this new whisper, if it is even partially true, threatens something even more delicate: Princess Eugenie. For years, she has been carefully positioned as one of the quiet, respectable members of the extended royal circle, a working professional, a modern royal navigating life between public duty and private independence. She married businessman Jack Brooksbank, welcomed 2 children, and built a reputation as someone trying to live beyond the shadow of her father's scandals. But rumors have a cruel habit of ignoring reputations, and the rumor swirling through certain investigative circles is that within Epstein's recovered laptop is an email thread referencing a child situation connected to the York household. That single phrase has triggered a tidal wave of speculation, because according to individuals who claim knowledge of the files, the emails do not directly accuse Eugenie of wrongdoing. They do not describe a crime. Instead, they reference conversations among Epstein associates discussing what one message allegedly called the royal problem if the child's story surfaces. A strange phrase, a dangerous phrase, and one that has sent conspiracy theories spiraling into overdrive. Some claim the email references a rumor Epstein himself once circulated among associates. A rumor that a child connected to royal circles could cause a public relations disaster if journalists discovered the details. Others insist the email might simply refer to gossip Epstein collected about powerful families, the kind of information he was known to hoard like currency. Remember, Epstein didn't just traffic in money, he trafficked in secrets. People who knew him have repeatedly said the man collected private information the way bankers collect assets: names, personal scandals, financial vulnerabilities, rumors about powerful families, all carefully archived, stored, and occasionally weaponized when it suited him, which raises a terrifying possibility. What if those emails weren't describing a real event, but rather a rumor Epstein believed could be useful leverage? Because if there's one thing investigators agree on, it's this: Epstein loved leverage, and leverage works best when it involves people with something to lose that the British royal family certainly qualifies. The situation becomes even more explosive when you remember how deeply Prince Andrew was entangled with Epstein. Their friendship was not casual. They traveled together, attended the same gatherings, maintained communication long after Epstein's first criminal conviction, which means if Epstein's private archives contain gossip about the York family, it would hardly be surprising. But what makes this particular rumor so volatile is the suggestion, however vague, that the emails reference a child. That single word has detonated the internet. That online forums immediately erupted with theories about a so-called hidden royal child, a secret birth, or an adoption story buried by palace officials. Most of these claims appear to have no evidence whatsoever. But in the age of viral speculation, evidence is often the least important ingredient. The moment the phrase appeared in leaked discussions among investigators investigative watchers, the rumor mutated into something far bigger, that suddenly the narrative was everywhere. Did Epstein know something about the York daughters? Was there an attempt to silence a story? Why would emails mention a royal problem? And perhaps most unsettling of all, why did Epstein keep records about it? Because the man had a habit of documenting everything. Guests, meetings, financial transactions, and private gossip. Investigators who have spent years combing through his archives say the scale of documentation inside Epstein's digital ecosystem is staggering. Thousands of emails, financial spreadsheets, contact lists containing names of politicians, celebrities, and business magnates. In that sea of information, even a vague reference to the York family becomes explosive, especially now when public trust in elite institutions is already fragile. Within hours of the rumor appearing online, royal watchers began dissecting every public moment in Eugenie's life. Her travels, her pregnancies, the timeline of her relationship with Jack Brooksbank. Old photographs resurfaced. Old interviews replayed. Every detail suddenly looks suspicious to someone. And that is the cruel mathematics of scandal that once a rumor exists, every ordinary moment becomes evidence to someone desperate to believe it. But inside the palace, the reaction, according to individuals who claim knowledge of royal communications, was swift and tense, because even if the rumor itself is nonsense, the mere existence of emails referencing it could become a nightmare. The monarchy has spent years trying to distance itself from the Epstein disaster. That Prince Andrew was pushed out of public life, his title stripped, his role within the royal structure quietly erased. The palace attempted to seal that chapter of history as tightly as possible, but history has a habit of leaking, and Epstein's digital archives are the kind of vault that can reopen old wounds with a single file. What investigators reportedly discovered on the laptop was not a smoking gun, not proof of any hidden child or secret arrangement, but fragments of conversation. Emails, mentions, speculation among Epstein associates discussing rumors circulating within elite social circles. One message reportedly described the situation as something that must never become public. Another allegedly referenced damage to the crown if York matters reach press. Even if these statements were simply the paranoid chatter of Epstein's network, they create a terrifying scenario for the monarchy because they prove something unsettling. People inside Epstein's world believed they possessed information capable of damaging the royal family. Whether that information was real, exaggerated, or completely fabricated remains unknown, but the existence of the emails alone ensures the rumor will not disappear easily. Investigators now face a complicated dilemma. Releasing the full contents of Epstein's digital archives could expose countless powerful individuals, but it could also unleash a tidal wave of unverified allegations capable of destroying reputations overnight. And somewhere inside those files, sitting quietly between thousands of mundane messages, may be the email thread that ignited this entire storm. A few lines of text. A reference to a child rumor, wars, divorces, and scand. Because if even one of those emails reveals something more concrete than gossip, the quiet princess at the center of this rumor could suddenly find herself standing in the middle of the biggest royal controversy since the fall of her own father. And the laptop that started it all is only beginning to speak. And the deeper investigators began digging into the files recovered from that FBI seized laptop, the more unsettling the situation became. Not because they suddenly discovered a confession or a smoking gun, but because the fragments they were seeing began to paint a strange and uncomfortable picture of how rumors about powerful families circulated within Epstein's inner circle like secret currency traded in private conversations. The archive itself reportedly contained thousands upon thousands of emails stretching across years of communication between Epstein and a web of financiers, socialites, assistants, lawyers, and mysterious intermediaries who seemed to move effortlessly between billionaire boardrooms and elite social gatherings where royalty and power brokers quietly crossed paths. Most of the messages were mundane: travel plans, introductions, business arrangements, invitations to charity events. But scattered inside that mountain of digital correspondence were small, almost casual references that investigators began flagging as unusual. And among those flagged references was the email thread that allegedly mentioned the phrase that would later ignite the internet, the York child rumor. According to individuals who claim knowledge of the file review process, the message itself did not come from Epstein directly, but from one of his longtime associates who was apparently discussing gossip circulating within high-level social circles after a private gathering in Europe sometime in the early 2010s, and the wording of the email was strange enough to catch investigators' attention immediately because it suggested that people within that circle believed a rumor about the York family could create severe institutional embarrassment if it ever reached journalists. The wording alone was explosive because it implied that the rumor wasn't simply tabloid chatter, but something whispered in rooms filled with powerful people who were accustomed to protecting their reputations at all costs. What made the email even more intriguing was a reply further down the thread where another participant allegedly wrote that Epstein himself had once joked about royal vulnerabilities and claimed to possess information that could shake Buckingham if it ever became useful. Now, whether Epstein was bragging, bluffing, or repeating the same rumors everyone else in those elite circles traded behind closed doors remains impossible to know. But investigators reportedly noted something else about the conversation that made them pause. The participants seemed convinced that the rumor involved a child whose existence would create complications for the royal family's carefully managed public narrative. No birth certificate, no date, no name, just vague speculation and the suggestion that the story had once been quietly handled before it could reach the press. Within hours of those fragments leaking to people watching the investigation, the speculation online exploded into 1,000 different versions of the same theory. Some claimed the emails were proof of a secret child hidden from the public. Others argued the messages were simply referencing an old rumor Epstein exaggerated to make himself sound powerful in front of wealthy acquaintances. Still, others pointed out that Epstein had a reputation for collecting scandalous gossip precisely because it allowed him to manipulate conversations with powerful people who feared embarrassment. And that possibility may actually be the most disturbing explanation of all, because if Epstein truly maintained an archive of rumors about politicians, celebrities, and even members of royal families, then those rumors were not just idle talk. They were leverage. Digital leverage stored in hard drives and encrypted accounts waiting for the moment when someone needed a favor, protection, or silence. Investigators reviewing the laptop reportedly became increasingly aware that Epstein's digital archive functioned almost like a blackmail insurance policy, not necessarily because every piece of information inside it was true, but because even a rumor could be devastating when attached to a powerful name. The York family, already bruised by years of scandal surrounding Prince Andrew, was particularly vulnerable to that kind of rumor because public trust in their reputation had already been weakened. And this is where the situation becomes incredibly complicated for the monarchy. Even if the rumor mentioned in those emails is nothing more than gossip invented by Epstein's social circle, the fact that it appears inside his archive means it now exists as part of the official investigative record. And once something enters that record, it becomes almost impossible to erase from the global conversation. Inside royal circles, the reaction has reportedly been tense but controlled because palace officials understand the brutal reality of modern scandal better than anyone. They know that rumors connected to Epstein have a unique ability to ignite public outrage even when the details are vague or unverified. They also know that the internet operates like an accelerant for speculation, transforming a few ambiguous sentences into an international controversy within hours. The palace has not commented on the alleged email references, and it is extremely unlikely they ever will, because acknowledging the rumor would only amplify it. Instead, insiders said the strategy is simple: silence and patience while investigators continue sorting through the massive archive of files recovered from Epstein's network. But the danger for the monarchy lies in what investigators might uncover next, because digital archives have a strange habit of revealing connections that were never intended to be seen together. A name mentioned in one email might appear again in another conversation months later. A vague rumor in one thread might connect to a completely different discussion in another part of the archive. And if more fragments referencing the York family appear as the investigation continues, the story could grow far larger than anyone inside Buckingham Palace wants to imagine. For now, the laptop remains one of the most mysterious pieces of evidence recovered in the Epstein investigation. A machine filled with thousands of files that investigators are still painstakingly reviewing line by line. Somewhere inside that ocean of data lies the original email thread that started the storm surrounding Princess Eugenie's name. Whether it ultimately proves to be nothing more than gossip traded among arrogant elites or something far more complicated remains unknown. But one thing is certain: the moment those emails surfaced, the Epstein scandal found a way to reach into the royal family once again, proving that the shadow cast by that case is far longer than anyone once believed.